is the first chapter of an as-yet unnamed revenge novel. You've probably seen Harris around town, as he possesses a remarkable talent for just sort of turning up. Go to a magazine rack, and there he'll be, leaping through an Italian Vogue, with a studied, almost theatrical air of nonchalance. Visit Macy's, and you'll find him leisurely sniffing colognes with the judgmental scowl of a wine connoisseur. Drop by a Walgreens, and sure enough, there he is again, rolling his eyes at the skin moisturizers, as if expressing dissatisfaction for some invisible audience. You're apt to discover Harris lurking in the corner of dive bars, hanging out in the kitchen at house parties, and perusing gourmet cheese at the supermarket. Harris is actually rather hard to avoid. Very well, you say. Perhaps I have crossed paths with this Harris chap. What does he look like? In answer, he's somewhere between 25 and 52, but it's hard to say where because his face displays a timelessly haggard quality. He's of European peasant stock, short and with the low center of gravity so necessary for harvesting potatoes and baling hay. His complexion is both wan and ruddy, his hair limp and brown. He has an unremarkable nose, thin, unkissable lips, and a tedious mustache. The only clue that Harris is a person worthy of interest is to be found in his eyes, which are entirely too lively and malicious for his drab, ordinary face. As for his wardrobe, Harris favors two distinct styles. The first is the retro white trash look, perennially popular with gay hipsters who want to bask in irony, but still sort of butch it up. Think trucker hats, plaid shirts, and vintage denim. Alternately, he attempts a metrosexual look, involving things like relaxed suit jackets and white pants. He is not a person you or anyone would long to see in the latest sandals, but he will always have the latest sandals. Shoes are one of Harris's few luxuries. That surprises you? Ah, I see. The retail establishments he haunts has you imagining an affluent member of the shopping classes. Allow me to clarify. Harris reads imported fashion magazines at newsstands because he cannot afford to purchase them. He does not buy cologne at department stores, but anoints himself daily from the free tester bottles. And he was rolling his eyes not at the selection, but the prices of the skin moisturizers. Harris, much like I, your humble narrator, is a gentleman living in what may be tactfully referred to as reduced circumstances. Despite his haughty airs, Harris is no social climber. Rather, he is in the grip of that once typically homosexual passion for cultivated taste. He is an aesthete, but no snob, just as capable of rhapsodizing over pot and garage rock as white wine and opera. He loathes nouveau riche tastelessness every bit as much as the downscale varieties. Wealth is incidental to his idea of glamour. He worships only chic. A telling fact, Harris regards his name as a serious affliction, an impediment to better living. He would prefer to be called Desmond, Adrian, or Jacques, something sophisticated and perhaps a little French. Harris is a name he believes appropriate only for the roadies of Scottish heavy metal bands or alcoholic horse trainers. Why doesn't Harris change his name? The reason is simple. Harris changes nothing. He's too busy lying in bed battling imaginary demons. Darling, you think you can slander me and I'll just stay here pinned to the page and allow it? Oh dear, I had not expected my subject to intrude into his own story. I could, as the author, simply banish him, but I won't because I'm a liberal and quite permissive in these regards. Perhaps, though, I will try to gently shoo him away. Harris, my good man, there's no need to fret. I'm simply explaining you to the world at large. My cunning description could even generate sympathy. You like sympathy, don't you? I do not battle imaginary demons. You only said that because it sounds good. I grant you it was a nice turn of phrase, Harris, but I didn't just snatch it out of the ether. You do manufacture threats. What about that time you called me in a tizzy because a Swedish man in the laundromat looked at you funny? He wasn't looking at me funny, he was glaring. If a Swede glared at you in the laundromat, you'd be upset too. They have penetrating eyes. And why are you writing in this pompous voice? Is it supposed to be funny? Well, darling, nobody's laughing. I'll tell you what this is about. You've already mined your misspent youth for all it's worth with your first 3 novels. Now, rather than lay bare the tragedy of your misspent middle age, you've turned on me for subject matter. To you, Harris. I've turned to you for subject matter. And you were chosen almost at random. This book isn't just a character study of you. It's going to segue seamlessly into a hilarious yet perceptive survey of queer hipsters negotiating their midlife crises in the shadow of gentrification and the mainstream assimilation of alternative culture. Well then, instead of reading me to filth, you could write about yourself. Perhaps the public would enjoy a stirring literary depiction of your codependent relationships, your dead-end job, your dysfunctional roommates, and your idiotic novels that nobody reads, and, oh, just the whole sick, bitter catastrophe that is Alvin Orloff. Enough, Harris. Your objections have been duly noted. My readers are now getting impatient, and I must return to the story. I hereby invoke my authorial authority and expel you from these pages. Be off. There. Harris has left. Perhaps by now you can guess why he fascinates me. He is all at once an everyman, a one-of-a-kind oddity, a free-floating signifier, and an enigma wrapped in a riddle hidden in a jeans jacket. He is a mental car crash from which I cannot look away. Yes, I am being judgmental, censorious, and perhaps even prosecutorial. What crime shall I eventually claim Harris is guilty of? I do not yet know. I only know that he is guilty. And what you, dear reader, cannot know, but should and must, is that Harris owes me $92 and has for quite some time. Thank you.